Alright, welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thapliyal, and now let's shift focus to annuity plans and discuss all that you need to know about it with Amol Joshi, founder, Plan Rupee Investment Services. Amol, hi, good evening, welcome to the show. So, we are going to talk about one of the most important aspect of your retirement planning, or rather one of the investment instruments which a lot of people consider is an annuity plan, that you get from insurance companies. Typically, what is the nature of these annuity plan, and how do they give you, how do they actually give you the benefit of having a regular income after retirement?
Right. So annuity plans are typically, the way they work is you deposit a lump sum, and especially this is used by retired people or people who have called it a day and they're into their sunset years. So you deposit a lump sum. Typically, you get guaranteed returns for a certain period of time, and that certain period of time is for rest of your life. Now, as you can imagine, whenever somebody says guaranteed income, you will essentially have to utilize the fixed income or bond sort of a underlying asset to invest that, to invest your corpus into. That is what the life insurance company does. So annuity plans are marketed or provided by life insurance companies. These plans are typically, as I said, you deposit a lump sum and then you get a monthly assured payment. Your next question was how these help into getting a regular income. So actually, this is what they do, right? So almost all the annuity plans have the monthly interest coming to your bank account, thereby providing you the necessary support for your monthly expenses. Of course, it depends on the kind of lump sum that you are putting into it.
All right. So now, in order to have a regular income, which annuity plans, provide you in the form of maybe a quarterly payment or 6 monthly or maybe yearly also, depends on the kind of option you've opted for. How can one go back and calculate this requirement? You have to invest lump sum, or the investment pattern also depends on the kind of plan you've opted actually. So what goes on in this calculation of the kind of amount that's needed as regular income?
Right. So, Kavita, for that, we will have to go into what kind of annuity plans are there. So, annuity plans, there are roughly 8 to 10 number of annuity plans. The simplest of it can be called as immediate annuity for life. So, you deposit a certain amount, just for the sake of round number, let's say that you deposit 1 crore rupees. Now, also imagine for a moment that the payout is at the rate of 6%. So typically, you will get 6 lakh rupees annual interest on that, which comes to about 50,000 rupees of payment. Now, this is how a typical annuity plan works. However, as I mentioned, there are 8 to 10 variations in this plan. The first one that I mentioned, the simplest one, it takes care of the lifetime of only one individual. Then there are more popular plans like joint annuity for life with return of purchase price. So I think the keywords via name itself, we are able to understand joint life. So you can take annuity on your name. Then in case of, you can also have a joint life, which is typically the spouse. This annuity payment will keep coming to you. And after death of one person, it will keep going to the second person. And after death of second person, the entire purchase price is returned to the nominee. Now the percentages differ, but I think I have tried to provide the broad calculation. Annuity, since these are guaranteed plans, the returns are typically lower, and anywhere between 5 to 6%, 6.1, 6.3%, depending on which plan out of these you choose, your payments will differ accordingly.
All right, so clearly it is the way that one can actually opt for when it comes to an annuity plan. But then having said that, is it really an important aspect of your retirement planning, or one can just have it strategized better through different or other financial instruments?
All right, this is a very important question. Now, out of all the 8 or 10 plans that we spoke of, there is only one plan. I'm talking about the largest insurer in the country, and that insurer provides rising annuity payments. So see, we all can imagine that somebody who retires at, let's say, 60 would probably have 20 years of life ahead of himself or herself. Now, having said that, if your annuity for the first month or first year is 50,000 rupees per month, this 50,000 rupees is going to be very, very small 5 years or 10 years later, right? For the simple reason that the inflation will eat away at the purchasing power of this same 50,000 rupees. So annuity is probably not the only a product that you should bank upon. What you should typically do in traditional sense, people used to kind of have second property and take the rental income, because rental income also typically the rent increases year on year in most common cases. And now in modern days, modern times, now that people are familiar, SIP culture has there is a substantial SIP culture in the investors, and people are familiar with the equity asset class. There are people who also kind of accumulate a larger corpus into mutual funds, typically equity hybrid or pure equity mutual funds, and do the SWP from those funds. Since the returns from market over medium to long term are higher, then instead of a 5 or 6% annuity payment, you can from equity probably do something like 7, 8, or
Right.
even 10% kind of SWP. But without a warning,
All right.
I cannot finish it without the warning. Equity returns are volatile, annuity are not.
Okay. All right. So that's all about annuity plans. But then we move on, and we have our viewer online with us from Andhra Pradesh, Raja Gopal. Good evening, Mr. Gopal. How are you doing today? I believe you have a question about Nippon Small Cap Fund, right?
Yeah, ma'am. Good evening.
Okay.
Yeah, I am my
Okay.
Nippon. Yeah, my Nippon
Any
small cap
spec-
fund. Fund value is 2.5 lakhs.
Okay. Any
Should I
specific reason you
continue
want to
in that?
switch? Any specific reason you want to switch to other fund or other same category fund?
Yeah, now markets are in heat now.
Okay.
Is there any further scope in small cap, or should I shift my fund to some flexi cap
No,
or large cap?
but then, isn't this a long-term investment for you?
Yeah, ma'am.
For how many years?
Next 5 years.
Okay. So you are not happy with the performance of this fund?
No, ma'am. I am happy right now. In future,
Okay.
the same performance will continue or not.
That is not guaranteed. I mean, okay.
Because-
Let's talk to Amol about it. So Amol, typically, I mean, although investors are really making money in the small cap space, but then investors like Mr. Gopal are also scared about their profits going away. But then over here, I believe he has a time horizon for 5 years. That's what he said. How do you think this profit playing out in 5 years? Obviously, he needs to be there longer to have the advantage or the benefits of compounding. But at this particular moment, booking profits and shifting to some other category fund, does it make sense? Just because of the fear that your profit will just go away from this category?
Kavita, I think the last bit from your question is the most important part. Whether you should be able to whether you should switch from your existing small cap where you have got decent returns to some other category. Now, whenever we talk about timing the market, people typically think that I have to shift when the markets are up or when I have made decent profits. But this is only half the transaction. Remaining half transaction, since Mr. Rajagopal has 5 years time horizon ahead of him, he cannot just switch to liquid today, because liquid he will get a FD sort of a fixed income kind of returns. Second part of the transaction is when there is a dip in the market, if there is one, which eventually there will be ultimately, during that time you have to come back from liquid to your equity asset class also to benefit from the long-term compounding, the part that you mentioned earlier. I would say that getting both the parts of this transaction right is highly it's very difficult, if not impossible. So I would like to say that if Mr. Rajgopal, if you have 5 years horizon ahead of you, I would say that you should just continue your SIP. And this is the third part. Since you're investing not in a lump sum mode, but in a SIP mode, even if there were ups and downs and corrections in the way, you will be able to get the averaging, which is the essential, which is typically called as rupee cost averaging or dollar cost averaging. Considering all of this and a decently long time frame that you have ahead of you, which is 5 years, I would suggest just continue your SIP. Just take care that you have also mentioned what is the valuation, 2.5 lakh rupees of this scheme in your entire portfolio. Just see to it that this does not become a large component of your portfolio. Typically, we suggest large cap exposure anywhere between 50 to 60 and mid cap exposure about 40% or thereabouts. So if you stick to this and have long-term horizon via SIP investment, I think you should be good.
All right, so have the ratio exposure right. Thank you so much, Amol, with that, being on the show and helping our viewers with their financial portfolio queries. And